The key wouldn't turn. I stood there on my own front porch at 11:30 on a Tuesday night, my leather briefcase in one hand and my rolling suitcase behind me, staring at the brass lockbolt that had worked perfectly fine when I left for Boston 3 days ago. The porch light cast everything in that sickly yellow glow that makes even familiar things look foreign. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. What the hell? I muttered, trying the key again. Nothing. Not even close. My name is Gavin Sterling. I'm 42 years old, and I've been practicing maritime law in this weathered East Coast port city for the past 15 years. I've dealt with enough insurance fraud, shipping disputes, and dock worker compensation cases to know when something's not right, and this was definitely not right. I pressed the doorbell. The chime echoed through what used to be my house, a 3-story brownstone I'd bought 12 years ago when Helena and I were still pretending our marriage had a future. The sound felt hollow, like it was bouncing around empty rooms. No answer. I could see lights on upstairs, the warm glow from our bedroom window. Helena's BMW was in the driveway, right next to a beat-up Ford pickup truck I didn't recognize. Well, that wasn't entirely true. I did recognize it, in the way you recognize a bad smell or the face of someone you'd rather forget. Rob Turner, Helena's high school sweetheart. The one who'd been showing up in her Instagram posts with increasing frequency over the past 2 months, always tagged at some gallery event or wine tasting, always with captions like, "Finally spending time with someone who appreciates art," or, "Some people actually know how to be present." I pulled out my phone and called Helena's number. It rang twice before she picked up. "What do you want, Gavin?" Her voice was cold, clipped. Not the voice of someone who'd missed her husband while he was away handling a complex shipping insurance case that would pay for her gallery's rent for the next 6 months. "I want to get into my house," I said, keeping my tone level. "The key doesn't work." There was a pause. Then I heard something that made me freeze. Laughter. Not Helena's laughter. Deeper, masculine, Rob's laughter. "We changed the locks," Helena said, and I could practically hear her shrug through the phone. "Don't bother me and Rob again." The line went silent. I stood there for a moment, phone still pressed to my ear, listening to the dial tone and the distant sound of waves crashing against the docks 6 blocks away. The salt air that usually felt like home now felt like it was corroding something vital in my chest. "Well," I said to the empty porch, "that's interesting. Here's what you need to understand about me. I don't get angry the way most people do. I don't yell or throw things or punch walls. When I get truly, deeply angry, I get very, very quiet. And I start thinking like a lawyer." I walked back to my car, a sensible Honda Accord that Helena always said made me look like an insurance adjuster, and sat behind the wheel for a few minutes, just thinking. The house was in my name. Well, technically it was held by the Sterling Family Trust, which I'd set up 7 years ago for tax purposes. Helena wasn't a trustee. She wasn't even a beneficiary unless I passed away. I pulled out my phone again and called Derek Chalmers, my senior partner at Chalmers, Morrison & Associates. Derek answered on the second ring, which didn't surprise me. The man slept about 4 hours a night and lived on black coffee and the tears of opposing counsel. "Gavin, you're supposed to be in Boston until Thursday." "Change of plans," I said. "I need you to do me a favor. I need you to pull the Sterling Family Trust documents and prepare an emergency filing, unlawful detainer, theft of personal property, and whatever else you can think of." There was a pause. "Jesus, Gavin, what happened?" "My wife changed the locks on my house and moved her boyfriend in." "Her what now?" "You heard me. Can you have papers ready by morning?" Derek's laugh was sharp and predatory. "Oh, this is going to be fun. Yeah, I can have papers ready. You want to destroy her or just embarrass her? Let's start with getting my house back and see how creative we're feeling after that." "I'll call Judge Morrison in the morning. He owes me a favor. Where are you staying tonight?" I looked up at my bedroom window, where I could see shadows moving against the curtains. "The Harbor View Hotel, I guess." "Bill it to the firm. This one's on the house." The Harbor View Hotel was the kind of place where traveling salesmen and cheating spouses went to pretend their lives were more interesting than they actually were. The carpet was burgundy and worn thin in patches, and the ice machine on my floor made a grinding noise like it was slowly fading. I didn't sleep much that night. Instead, I sat at the small desk by the window, my laptop open, making lists. That's what lawyers do when the world goes sideways. We make lists and check them twice. List 1. Assets. The house, obviously. My car. My retirement accounts. The boat I'd bought 2 years ago and used exactly 3 times. My collection of vintage maritime law books. my grandfather's watch collection, which I kept in a safe in the bedroom closet. List 2. Helena's assets, her art gallery, which I'd been subsidizing for the past 3 years, her BMW, which was in both our names, her credit cards, which were tied to my accounts, her entire lifestyle, which depended entirely on my income. List 3. Things I knew about Rob Turner: high school dropout turned dock worker, divorced twice, had a reputation for sleeping with married women, drove a truck that was older than some of my law clerks, lived in a one-bedroom apartment above Murphy's Tavern. By 6 in the morning, I had a plan. I showered, put on my best suit, navy blue, tailored, the one that made me look like I could foreclose on your grandmother and sleep soundly afterward, and drove to the office. Derek was already there, of course, surrounded by legal documents and empty coffee cups. "You look like hell," he said by way of greeting. "I feel fantastic," I lied. "What do we have?" Derek grinned and slid a manila folder across his desk. Emergency petition for unlawful detainer. Motion for immediate possession. Restraining order preventing disposal of assets. And my personal favorite, a demand for accounting of all personal property, with particular attention to items of significant value. I flipped through the papers. They were beautiful in their precision, each paragraph a small legal landmine waiting to explode in Helena's face. "The security cameras," Derek said. "Please tell me you have security cameras." I'd installed them 6 months ago, after a break-in 2 streets over. Small, discrete cameras that recorded to a cloud server. Helena had complained about them, said they made the house feel like a prison. "I have security cameras," I confirmed. "And they're still recording?" 24/7. Derek's grin widened. "Oh, this is going to be good. What are the odds your wife and her boyfriend have been doing things they shouldn't be doing?" I thought about my grandfather's watch collection, about the way Helena had been asking pointed questions about my valuable old junk for the past month, about how she'd suddenly developed an interest in antique jewelry and vintage timepieces. I'd say the odds are pretty good. We drove to the courthouse together, Derek's BMW purring through the morning traffic like a well-fed predator. Judge Morrison was an old friend of Derek's from law school, and he had a well-known distaste for adultery and property theft. The hearing took exactly 12 minutes. Helena wasn't there, of course. She had no idea what was coming. Judge Morrison signed the papers with the kind of flourish usually reserved for final verdicts. "Sheriff's Department will serve the papers at noon," Derek said as we walked back to the parking garage. "You want to be there?" "Wouldn't miss it." I spent the morning at my desk, trying to focus on actual work and failing miserably. Around 11:30, I got a text from Helena. "Saw your car at the office. Thought you were still in Boston. Don't come home without calling first." I stared at the message for a long moment, then deleted it without responding. At 11:50, I parked across the street from my house and waited. The sheriff's car arrived at exactly noon, followed by Derek's BMW. Sheriff's Deputy Alice Juneau, an old friend from high school who'd gone into law enforcement instead of law, stepped out of the patrol car and straightened her uniform. "Gavin," she said, nodding at me as I crossed the street. "Heard you were having some domestic difficulties." "Just a small property dispute," I said. "Nothing we can't handle legally." Derek handed her the papers. "Standard unlawful detainer. Judge Morrison wants immediate possession restored to the legal owner." Alice rang the doorbell. After a moment, I heard Helena's voice through the intercom. "Who is it?" "Sheriff's Department, ma'am. I need to speak with you regarding a legal matter." The door opened, and there was Helena. She was wearing the silk robe I'd bought her for Christmas, her dark hair pulled back in a messy bun. She looked beautiful and confused, and just a little bit scared. "What's this about?" she asked. Alice handed her the papers. "You're being served with an unlawful detainer action. You have 24 hours to vacate the premises." Helena's face went white. "What? That's impossible. This is my house, too." "Actually," Derek said, stepping forward with his briefcase, "it's not. The property is held in trust, and you're not a beneficiary. You're currently trespassing." "Gavin?" Helena looked at me for the first time, her eyes wide. "What is this? What are you doing?" "I'm reclaiming my property," I said quietly. "You changed the locks. You moved another man into my house. You made your choice." Rob appeared behind her, wearing nothing but boxers and a t-shirt that had seen better days. "What's all this noise about?" Alice looked him up and down with the expression she usually reserved for drunk drivers and domestic abusers. "And you are?" "Rob Turner. I live here." "No," Derek said, consulting his papers. "You don't. You're also being served." He handed Rob a second set of papers. "Restraining order. You're to stay at least 500 feet away from this property." Rob's face darkened. This is bullshit. You can't just throw us out. Actually, I said, I can, and I am. Helena was reading through the papers now, her face getting paler with each page. Theft of personal property? Gavin, what are you talking about? My grandfather's watch collection, I said. The one you've been so interested in lately, the one that's currently missing from the bedroom safe. Helena's mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air. Behind her, Rob had gone very still. I want to see a search warrant, Rob said. Derek laughed. This isn't a criminal matter. Yet, Mr. Sterling is simply reclaiming his property and evicting trespassers. Alice stepped forward. Ma'am, I need you to gather your personal belongings. You have 1 hour. 1 hour? Helena's voice cracked. Alice, we went to high school together. You know me. I know you, Alice said calmly. And I know the law. 1 hour. While Helena and Rob scrambled to pack their belongings, I sat in Derek's BMW and accessed the security camera footage on my laptop. What I found was even better than I'd hoped. The cameras had captured everything. Helena and Rob going through my study, photographing documents, Rob examining my grandfather's watches with what looked like a jeweler's loop, Helena making phone calls while holding up individual timepieces to the light. And most damning of all, footage from 2 days ago showing Rob loading a small wooden box, the box where I kept the most valuable watches, into his truck. Jesus, Derek whistled, looking over my shoulder at the laptop screen. They're not very smart, are they? Smart enough to wait until I was out of town, I said. Not smart enough to remember about the cameras. My phone buzzed. A text from Helena. Please, Gavin, we need to talk. This is all a misunderstanding. I showed the message to Derek. He shook his head. Don't respond. Let your lawyer do the talking. You are my lawyer. Exactly. At exactly 1 o'clock, Alice knocked on the front door. Helena answered, her eyes red from crying. She'd changed into jeans and a sweater, and she was carrying a single suitcase. Where's Mr. Turner? Alice asked. Loading his truck, Helena said quietly. Rob appeared from around the side of the house, carrying a cardboard box. He avoided eye contact with everyone and headed straight for his truck. Ma'am, Alice said to Helena, I need to ask you about some missing property, specifically a collection of vintage watches. Helena's face crumpled. I can explain. I'm sure you can, but you'll need to explain it to Detective Martinez downtown. You're under arrest for grand larceny. The next few minutes were a blur of Miranda rights and handcuffs, and Helena sobbing that this was all a mistake, that she was just having them appraised, that she was going to put them back. Rob tried to drive away, but Alice had called for backup. A second patrol car blocked his truck at the end of the driveway, and when they searched the vehicle, they found the wooden box containing 12 vintage Rolex watches worth approximately $80,000. Gavin, Helena called out as they put her in the back of the patrol car. Please, don't do this. I love you. I walked over to the car and looked down at her through the window. You changed the locks, I said quietly. You told me not to bother you and Rob again. I'm just following your instructions. The patrol car pulled away, taking Helena and her tears with it. Rob's truck was impounded, and Rob himself was taking a ride in the second patrol car, looking like a man who just realized he'd bet everything on the wrong horse. Derek clapped me on the shoulder. Well, that was satisfying. What now? Now, I said. I changed the locks back. The next morning, I woke up in my own bed for the first time in 4 days. The house felt different, cleaner somehow, like a fever had broken. I made coffee in my own kitchen and read the newspaper at my own table, and for the first time in months, I felt something approaching peace. That peace lasted until I checked my phone and found 17 missed calls from Helena's mother, Vera Moss. Vera was everything I'd expected when I married Helena. Wealthy, judgmental, and convinced that her daughter had married beneath her station. She lived in a sprawling colonial on the good side of town and spent her days organizing charity events and spreading gossip with surgical precision. I called her back. Gavin Sterling, how dare you? She launched in without preamble. How dare you have my daughter arrested like some common criminal? Good morning, Vera, I said calmly. Helena wasn't arrested for being common. She was arrested for stealing $80,000 worth of watches. Those watches were community property. Actually, they weren't. They were inherited property held in trust. But I'm sure Helena's lawyer will explain the difference. There was a pause. She needs bail money. Then I suggest you provide it. This is your wife, Gavin. Your responsibility. My wife changed the locks and moved another man into my house. My responsibility ended there. I hung up and blocked Vera's number. The next call came from Jenna, Helena's 17-year-old daughter from her first marriage. I'd helped raise Jenna since she was 8, paid for her private school and her dance classes and her first car. She called me Dad more often than she called me Gavin. Dad? Her voice was small and confused. What's happening? Mom's in jail and everyone's talking about it. This was the conversation I'd been dreading. Jenna, your mom made some bad choices. She's going to have to face the consequences. But she said you had her arrested for no reason. She said you're trying to destroy her. I'm trying to protect what's mine. There's a difference. She's my mom, Dad. She's your wife. She was my wife. She made it very clear that she'd rather be with Rob. Jenna was quiet for a long moment. Can I come home? Grandma Vera's house is awful, and all her friends keep staring at me like I'm some kind of criminal, too. Of course you can come home. This is your home, too. Even though I'm not really your daughter? The question hit me like a punch to the gut. Jenna, you are my daughter in every way that matters. What's happening between your mother and me doesn't change that. She started crying then, and I found myself making promises I wasn't sure I could keep, that everything would be okay, that we'd figure it out together, that families could survive anything if they loved each other enough. After I hung up with Jenna, I drove to Helena's gallery. The Moss Gallery was located in the trendy Arts District, a converted warehouse space with exposed brick walls and industrial lighting that was supposed to look edgy and sophisticated. Helena had opened it 3 years ago, with money from her divorce settlement and dreams of becoming a major player in the regional art scene. The reality was less impressive. The gallery specialized in overpriced abstract paintings and pretentious sculpture installations that appealed mainly to wealthy people who wanted to seem cultured. Helena had a good eye for art, I had to admit, but she had no head for business. The gallery had been losing money since month 6, and I'd been covering the losses with increasing frequency. I had a key to the gallery. Helena had given it to me 2 years ago when she'd needed me to meet a delivery while she was out of town. I let myself in and went straight to the office in the back. Helena's business records were a mess, which didn't surprise me. Bills stuffed into folders, receipts scattered across her desk, bank statements mixed in with artist portfolios. But I was a lawyer, and lawyers know how to organize chaos into evidence. It took me 2 hours to piece together the full picture, and when I did, I almost felt sorry for Helena. Almost. The gallery owed money to everyone, suppliers, artists, the landlord, the insurance company. Helena had been juggling payments for months, robbing Peter to pay Paul and hoping something would turn around. The theft of my watches hadn't been a crime of passion or revenge. It had been desperation. She'd been planning to sell them to cover the gallery's debts and probably hoped I wouldn't notice they were missing until she could figure out how to replace them. It was a stupid plan, but then again, people in desperate situations often make stupid choices. I was still sitting at Helena's desk, surrounded by financial documents, when the gallery door chimed. I looked up to see Mila Vasquez, Helena's assistant, standing in the doorway looking confused. "Mr. Sterling, what are you doing here? Where's Helena?" Mila was 28, smart, and had an actual degree in art history, which made her overqualified for her job as Helena's assistant. She was also one of the few people associated with the gallery that I actually liked. "Helena's dealing with some legal issues," I said. "I'm trying to figure out the gallery's financial situation." Mila's face fell. "Oh, I heard about the arrest. Is it true? About the watches?" "I'm afraid so." She sat down in the chair across from Helena's desk and put her head in her hands. I knew something was wrong. She's been so stressed lately, making weird phone calls, asking strange questions about insurance and appraisals. "How bad is the gallery's situation?" Mila looked up at me with tired eyes. "Bad. Really bad. We haven't paid rent in 2 months. 3 artists are threatening to sue because their commission checks bounced. The insurance got canceled last week." I nodded and went back to the financial documents. The numbers were worse than I'd thought. Even if Helena managed to avoid jail time, the gallery was finished. "Mila," I said, "I need you to do me a favor. I need you to contact all the artists and tell them to come pick up their work. Today, if possible." "Why?" "Because as of tomorrow, this gallery is closed." Word travels fast in a small city, especially when it involves adultery, theft, and public arrests. By Thursday morning, my phone was ringing constantly with calls from friends, acquaintances, and people I barely knew who wanted to express their support, offer their condolences, or just get the juicy details firsthand. Most of the calls were supportive. My law partners were solidly behind me. My boxing coach, Sal, offered to have a conversation with Rob Turner that would leave him walking funny for a month. Even my dry cleaner, Mrs. Chen, patted my hand sympathetically when I dropped off my suits and told me that Helena never deserved a good man like you. But not everyone was on my side. The first sign of trouble came from Tom Bradley, who had been my best friend since college. Tom was a successful real estate developer, married to Susan, who was Helena's closest friend. The four of us had been inseparable for years. Dinner parties, weekend trips, couples vacations to Martha's Vineyard. Tom called me Thursday afternoon, and his voice was cold. "Gavin, we need to talk." "Sure, Tom. What's up?" "What's up is that you had Helena arrested. What's up is that you're destroying a woman who's been part of our lives for over a decade." I felt something cold settle in my stomach. "Tom, she stole from me. She moved another man into my house. She made a mistake. People make mistakes, Gavin. That doesn't mean you destroy their entire life. She destroyed her own life when she decided to betray our marriage. Jesus Christ, listen to yourself. You sound like some kind of vengeful monster. This isn't the Gavin I know. Maybe you never knew me as well as you thought." There was a long pause. "Susan and I have been talking. We think you need to drop the charges and work this out like adults." "And if I don't?" "Then we can't be friends anymore. We won't be part of this vindictive crusade you're on." The line went silent. Within an hour, I got similar calls from 3 other couples in our social circle. The message was always the same. Drop the charges, forgive Helena, work it out in marriage counseling, be the bigger person. By Friday, the lines were clearly drawn. Half our mutual friends supported me, understanding that Helena had crossed a line that couldn't be uncrossed. The other half thought I was being cruel and vindictive, that a real man would handle this privately instead of airing his dirty laundry in public. The confrontation I'd been dreading came Saturday night at Murphy's Tavern, the working-class bar where Rob Turner spent most of his evenings. I wasn't looking for trouble. I'd just stopped in for a beer after a long day of dealing with lawyers and insurance adjusters, and the general wreckage of my marriage. But trouble found me anyway. "Well, look who it is," a voice said behind me. "The big-shot lawyer who gets his kicks destroying working people." I turned around to see Danny Morrison, Rob's best friend and drinking buddy. Danny was a dock worker like Rob, but bigger and meaner, with the kind of face that looked like it had stopped a few too many punches. "Danny," I said calmly. "How are you?" "How am I? I'm pissed off. That's how I am. My buddy Rob is facing 5 years in prison because you couldn't handle the fact that your wife found a real man." The bar had gone quiet. Everyone was watching, waiting to see what would happen next. "Your buddy Rob is facing 5 years in prison because he stole $80,000 worth of watches," I said. "That's called consequences." "That's called being a vindictive asshole," said another voice. Mike Sullivan, another member of Rob's crew. "You rich boys are all the same. Can't stand it when someone takes what you think belongs to you." "What belongs to me," I said, my voice getting quieter, "is my property. What belongs to me is my house. What belongs to me is my marriage. Your friend decided to help himself to all 3. "Your marriage?" Danny laughed, but it wasn't a pleasant sound. "Brother, your marriage was over long before Rob came along. Helena told everyone how you were never home, how you cared more about your law books than your wife. Helena told everyone a lot of things, most of them lies." That's when Danny decided to get physical. He grabbed my shoulder and spun me around, his face inches from mine. "You want to call my friend's woman a liar?" I could smell beer and cigarettes on his breath. I could see the veins in his red eyes. I could feel the attention of everyone in the bar focused on us like a spotlight. "I want you to take your hand off me," I said quietly. "Or what? You'll call the cops? You'll have me arrested too?" "Or I'll break your arm." Danny laughed. "You? You couldn't break a..." I moved fast, using a technique Sal had taught me at the boxing gym. I grabbed Danny's wrist, twisted it behind his back, and slammed him face first into the bar. His beer mug shattered, and suddenly there was broken glass and spilled beer everywhere. "Jesus!" someone yelled. I kept Danny pinned to the bar with one hand and looked around at his friends. "Anyone else want to discuss my marriage?" Mike Sullivan took a step forward, then stopped when he saw the expression on my face. "Here's what's going to happen," I said, my voice carrying clearly through the silent bar. "You're going to leave me alone. You're going to tell Rob to leave me alone. You're going to stop spreading lies about my wife and my marriage. And if any of you come near me or my house or my family again, I'll have you arrested for harassment." I let Danny go. He straightened up, rubbing his wrist and glaring at me with pure hatred. "This isn't over," he said. "Yes," I said, "it is." I left money on the bar for my beer and walked out. Behind me I could hear angry voices and the scrape of chairs, but no one followed me. Helena's trial was scheduled for a Thursday morning in late October. She'd been out on bail for 2 weeks, staying with her mother and trying to salvage what was left of her reputation. Her lawyer, a young public defender named Jennifer Walsh, had tried to negotiate a plea deal, but I'd instructed Derek to reject any offer that didn't include full restitution and jail time. I wasn't being vindictive, I was being practical. Helena had crossed a line, and there had to be consequences. Not just for me, but for everyone who might think they could steal from someone and then claim it was all a misunderstanding. The courthouse was packed. Word had gotten around about the case. The cheating wife, the stolen watches, the dramatic arrest. It was the kind of small-town drama that people couldn't resist. Helena looked small and fragile at the defendant's table, wearing a conservative blue dress that made her look younger than her 40 years. She kept glancing back at me, her eyes pleading for some sign of forgiveness or mercy. I gave her nothing. The prosecutor, Assistant District Attorney Robert Chen, laid out the case methodically. The missing watches, the security camera footage, Helena's confession at the scene, Rob's testimony given in exchange for a reduced sentence. Helena's lawyer tried to argue that it was a domestic dispute, not a criminal matter, that Helena had been under emotional stress, that she'd intended to return the watches after having them appraised. But the evidence was overwhelming, and Judge Morrison had no patience for excuses. "Mrs. Sterling," he said, looking down at Helena from the bench, "you violated the trust of your marriage and the law of this state. The fact that you were married to the victim doesn't give you the right to steal from him." Helena started crying then, quiet tears that ran down her cheeks and dripped onto her folded hands. "However," Judge Morrison continued, "I'm willing to consider the circumstances of your case. This appears to be a crime of desperation rather than greed." He sentenced Helena to 6 months in county jail, suspended to probation, plus full restitution and 200 hours of community service. It was a light sentence, all things considered. Rob got worse. 6 months in jail, no suspension. As we filed out of the courthouse, Helena caught up with me on the steps. "Gavin," she said, "please, can we talk?" I stopped and looked at her. She looked older than she had 6 months ago, worn down by stress and shame and the weight of consequences she'd never expected to face. "What do you want to talk about, Helena?" "I want to apologize. I want to explain. I want to try to make this right. You can make it right by staying away from me and my house and my life. What about Jenna? She needs both her parents." "She has both her parents. She has you and she has me. She doesn't need us to be married for that." Helena's face crumpled. "I never meant for any of this to happen." "Yes, you did. You meant every bit of it. You just didn't mean to get caught." I walked away and left her standing there on the courthouse steps, crying in front of half the town. 6 months later, I was sitting in my study on a Saturday morning, reading through a complex shipping insurance case and drinking my second cup of coffee, when Jenna knocked on the door. "Dad, can I talk to you?" "Of course, sweetheart. Come in." Jenna was 18 now, getting ready to graduate from high school. She'd grown up a lot in the past year, forced to mature by circumstances that no teenager should have to face. She was living with me full-time now, visiting her mother on weekends when Helena wasn't doing community service. "I got accepted to Boston University," she said, holding up an envelope. "Jenna, that's wonderful." I stood up and hugged her. "I'm so proud of you." "The thing is," she said, pulling back to look at me, "I know college is expensive, and I know everything that happened with Mom cost a lot of money too. I can go to the state school instead, or maybe take a year off and work." "Absolutely not," I said firmly. "You're going to Boston University. You're going to study whatever you want to study, and you're not going to worry about money." "But Dad..." "Jenna, what happened between your mother and me is not your responsibility. You didn't cause it, and you're not going to suffer for it. You're going to college, and that's final." She hugged me again, tighter this time. "I love you, Dad." "I love you too, sweetheart." After Jenna left to meet friends at the mall, I went back to my study and pulled out the folder I kept locked in my desk drawer. The folder contained all the documents from Helena's case, police reports, court transcripts, financial records. I also contained something else, the divorce papers that had been finalized 3 months ago. Helena had tried to fight the divorce at first, claiming that I was being unreasonable, that couples could work through infidelity, that we owed it to Jenna to try harder, but her lawyer had explained the reality of her situation. She had no claim to the house, no claim to my retirement accounts, no claim to anything except whatever she could earn on her own. The gallery was gone, of course, closed and liquidated to pay debts. Helena was working at a coffee shop downtown, living in a small apartment, trying to rebuild her life from scratch. I didn't take any pleasure in her downfall, but I didn't regret it either. My phone rang, interrupting my thoughts. It was Derek. "Gavin, you busy? I've got something interesting to show you." "What kind of interesting?" The kind that involves your ex-wife and a very angry landlord. 20 minutes later, I was sitting in Derek's office looking at a legal document that made me smile for the first time in weeks. She's being evicted? I asked. 3 months behind on rent. The landlord filed yesterday. Where's she going to go? Derek shrugged. Not your problem anymore. He was right, of course. Helena's housing situation was no longer my responsibility, but Jenna was still my responsibility, and Jenna loved her mother despite everything that had happened. Draw up a check, I said. Cover her back rent in 2 months forward. Derek looked at me like I'd lost my mind. Gavin, why would you do that? Because Jenna doesn't need to worry about her mother being homeless on top of everything else. You're too good to that woman. I'm not doing it for Helena. I'm doing it for Jenna. Derek shook his head, but started preparing the paperwork. You want Helena to know this came from you? I thought about it for a moment. No, make it anonymous. Let her think she got lucky. That evening, I was working in my garden when Alice Juno stopped by. She was off duty, wearing jeans and a t-shirt, carrying a 6-pack of beer. Thought you might want some company, she said. We sat on my back porch, drinking beer and watching the sun set over the harbor. Alice had been a good friend through everything, offering advice when I needed it and staying out of my business when I didn't. You seem different, she said after a while. Different how? Lighter, I guess, like you're not carrying around a weight anymore? I thought about that. She was right. For the first time in years, I felt like I could breathe freely. I wasn't walking on eggshells around Helena's moods. I wasn't worrying about her spending or her lies or her increasingly erratic behavior. I guess I'm not, I said. Any regrets? About the divorce? No, about how it happened. Sometimes. Alice nodded. You did what you had to do. Helena made her choices? Yeah, she did. We sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching boats come and go in the harbor. Finally, Alice stood up to leave. Gavin, she said, you know you're going to be okay, right? You and Jenna both, you're going to be fine. I know, I said, and for the first time in a long time, I actually believed it. 2 weeks before Jenna's high school graduation, Helena called me. It was the first time we'd spoken since the courthouse steps 8 months earlier. Gavin, I need to ask you a favor. What kind of favor? I want to throw Jenna a graduation party, a real party, with all her friends and family. But I can't afford it, and my apartment is too small. I was quiet for a moment, thinking. Jenna deserved a proper graduation party. She'd worked hard in school, maintained good grades despite everything that had happened at home. She'd been accepted to college and was planning to study pre-law, following in my footsteps. You want to use the house, I said. Just for one afternoon? I know it's a lot to ask, but Jenna's been through so much, and I want to do something special for her. Helena, you changed the locks on this house and told me never to come back. You moved another man into my bedroom, and now you want to throw a party here? I know I have no right to ask, but this isn't about us. This is about Jenna. She was right, and we both knew it. Whatever had happened between Helena and me, Jenna shouldn't suffer for it. Fine, I said. Saturday afternoon, 2 to 6. You clean up afterward. Thank you, Gavin. Really, thank you. The party was everything Helena had promised. The backyard was decorated with balloons and streamers. There was a catered buffet, a DJ, and about 50 teenagers having the time of their lives. Jenna looked beautiful and happy, wearing a white sundress and a smile that reminded me of the little girl I'd helped raise. I stayed mostly in the background, playing the role of the host, but letting Helena take credit for organizing everything. It was her gift to Jenna, and I wasn't going to take that away from her. But as the afternoon wore on, I noticed something that made my pressure rise. Rob Turner was there. He was trying to stay inconspicuous, hanging around the edges of the party, but I spotted him talking to some of the other parents. He looked different than he had 8 months ago. Thinner, older, with the kind of haunted look that comes from spending time in county jail. I walked over to where he was standing by the fence, nursing a beer and watching the teenagers dance. Rob, I said quietly. He turned around and I saw a flash of fear in his eyes before he managed to cover it with false bravado. Gavin, hell of a party. What are you doing here? Helena invited me, said it was important to Jenna to have all her family here. You're not family. Rob's jaw tightened. Helena and I are back together. That makes me part of Jenna's life, whether you like it or not. I felt something cold and dangerous settle in my chest. You're back together? That's right. Turns out some women can forgive a man for making mistakes. And some men are stupid enough to think they can steal from me twice. Rob took a step closer, and I could smell alcohol on his breath. I never stole anything from you the first time. Helena gave me those watches to sell. She needed money for the gallery. Helena needed money because she was having an affair instead of running her business. Helena needed money because her husband was never around to help her. That's when I hit him. It wasn't a wild, emotional punch. It was precise and controlled, delivered with all the techniques Sal had taught me at the boxing gym. Rob went down hard, his beer bottle shattering on the concrete patio. The party went silent. 50 teenagers and 20 adults all staring at me in shock. Rob struggled to his feet, red liquid running from his nose. "You crazy snake!" "Get out," I said quietly. "Get out of my house, get out of my yard, and get out of my life." "Helena!" Rob yelled. "Helena, your psycho ex-husband just assaulted me." Helena came running over, her face white with panic. "Gavin, what happened? What did you do?" "I removed a trespasser from my property." "Rob, are you okay?" Helena knelt down beside him, dabbing at his red nose with a napkin. "I'm calling the police," Rob said. "This time you're going to jail." "Go ahead," I said. "Call them. Tell them how you violated the restraining order by coming within 500 feet of my property." Rob's face went pale. He'd forgotten about the restraining order, which was still in effect. Alice Juno appeared at my elbow. She was off duty, attending the party as a family friend, but she was still a cop. "Problem here, Gavin?" she asked. "Mr. Turner was just leaving," I said. "He seems to have forgotten about the legal restrictions on his presence here." Alice looked at Rob, then at the red stains on his face, then at the crowd of witnesses. "Mr. Turner, I think you should go." "This is bullshit," Rob muttered, but he was already backing toward the gate. "Helena, are you coming with me or not?" Helena looked at Rob, then at me, then at Jenna, who was standing in the middle of her ruined party with tears in her eyes. "Go home, Rob," Helena said quietly. "Just go home." Rob stared at her for a moment, his face twisting with anger and humiliation. Then he turned and walked away, slamming the gate behind him. The party resumed after a few minutes, but the mood was different, subdued. Parents started making excuses to leave early, and by 5 o'clock, most of the guests were gone. I found Jenna sitting alone on the porch swing, still wearing her white dress, but with her party smile long gone. "I'm sorry, sweetheart," I said, sitting down beside her. "I'm sorry I ruined your party." "You didn't ruin it, Dad. Mom did when she invited Rob." "She was trying to do something nice for you." Jenna shook her head. "She was trying to prove something to herself. She always is." We sat in silence for a while, watching the last of the guests say their goodbyes. "Dad?" Jenna said finally. "Yeah?" "I'm glad you punched him." I laughed, surprised by her honesty. "You are?" "He had it coming. He's been telling people around town that you're the villain in all this, that you destroyed Mom's life because you couldn't handle being cheated on. What do you think?" Jenna was quiet for a long moment. "I think Mom made her choices, and you made yours. I think Rob Turner is a loser who ruins everything he touches, and I think you're the best dad a girl could ask for." She leaned against my shoulder, and I put my arm around her. "I love you, Jenna." "I love you too, Dad." Helena appeared in the doorway, looking tired and defeated. "Gavin, I need to talk to you." Jenna squeezed my hand and went inside, leaving Helena and me alone on the porch. "I'm sorry," Helena said. "I shouldn't have invited Rob. I don't know what I thought." "You thought you could have it both ways. You thought you could play happy family with the man who helped you steal from me." Helena sat down in the chair across from the swing. "I know you hate me." "I don't hate you, Helena. I don't feel anything for you at all anymore." "That's worse, isn't it?" I considered the question. "For you, maybe." Helena started crying then. Quiet tears that reminded me of the woman I'd fallen in love with 15 years ago. But that woman was gone, if she'd ever really existed at all. "I lost everything," she whispered. "My gallery, my house, my husband, my reputation, everything." "You didn't lose those things. You threw them away." I know I did, and I know it's too late to fix it." "Yes, it is." Helena wiped her eyes and stood up. "I'll get my things and go." "Helena," I said as she reached the door. She turned back, hope flickering in her eyes. "Don't bring Rob around Jenna again. She doesn't need that drama in her life." The hope faded. "Okay. And Helena? The next time you need money for rent, ask. Don't let Jenna worry about you being homeless." Helena's eyes widened. "That was you? The anonymous payment?" "Jenna's been through enough." Helena nodded, fresh tears starting to fall. "Thank you." "Don't thank me. Just be a better mother than you were a wife." She left without another word, and I sat alone on my porch, watching the sun set over the harbor and thinking about second chances and the roads not taken. 3 months later, I helped Jenna load her car for the drive to Boston University. She was excited and nervous and trying not to cry, which made two of us. "You have everything?" I asked for the 10th time. "Sheets, towels, your laptop?" "Yes, Dad. I have everything." "Money for books? Emergency cash?" "Dad, you gave me enough money to buy the entire bookstore." I laughed and pulled her into a hug. "Call me when you get there. Call me every day for the first week. Call me if you need anything at all." "I will, I promise." Jenna got in her car and started the engine. Then she rolled down the window. "Dad, thank you for everything, for fighting for us, for not giving up. Thank you for being the best thing to come out of my marriage." She drove away, and I stood in my driveway waving until her car disappeared around the corner. That evening, I was sitting in my study when the doorbell rang. I opened it to find Alice Juno standing on my porch, holding a bottle of wine and wearing a dress I'd never seen before. "Thought you might need some company," she said. "Empty nest and all." "Alice, are you asking me out on a date?" She grinned. "I'm asking if you want to share a bottle of wine with an old friend who's been waiting patiently for you to get your life sorted out." I stepped aside to let her in. "How long have you been waiting?" "About 20 years, give or take." We opened the wine and sat on the back porch, talking and laughing until well past midnight. For the first time in longer than I could remember, the future felt full of possibilities instead of obligations. The next morning, I woke up alone, but not lonely. I made coffee and read the newspaper and planned my day. Simple pleasures that felt profound after everything I'd been through. My phone rang around 9 o'clock. Helena's name appeared on the caller ID, and for a moment, I considered not answering, but old habits are strong. "What do you want, Helena?" "I wanted to tell you that Rob and I broke up." "Congratulations." "Gavin, I know this doesn't change anything between us, but I wanted you to know that I finally understand what you were trying to tell me." "Which is?" "That actions have consequences. That you can't just take what you want and expect other people to clean up the mess." I was quiet for a moment. "What are you going to do now?" "I'm moving to Florida. My sister lives there, and she says she can get me a job at an art museum. Not much money, but it's honest work." "That sounds good, Helena. I hope it works out for you." "Will you tell Jenna I love her and that I'm proud of her?" "You can tell her yourself. She's your daughter." "I know. I wanted you to know that I'm grateful. For the rent money, for not pressing charges when I violated the restraining order, for letting me throw Jenna's party." "Helena?" "Yes?" "Don't call me anymore. If you need to communicate with me about Jenna, do it through lawyers, but don't call me." "I understand." I hung up and deleted her number from my phone. 6 months later, Jenna called me from Boston with exciting news. She'd made Dean's List her first semester and had been accepted into a competitive pre-law program. She was happy, thriving, building a life for herself far away from the drama that had defined her high school years. "I'm proud of you, sweetheart," I told her. "I learned from the best," she said. "Dad, can I ask you something?" "Anything." "Do you ever regret how everything happened with Mom? Do you ever wish you'd handled it differently?" I thought about the question seriously. Did I regret having Helena arrested? Did I regret the public humiliation, the destroyed friendships, the scorched earth approach I'd taken to ending my marriage? "No," I said finally. "I don't regret it. Your mother made choices that had consequences. I just made sure those consequences were real." "Good," Jenna said. "Because I was worried you might be feeling guilty." "Why would I feel guilty?" "Because you're a good man, Dad. And good men sometimes feel guilty for doing what they have to do." After I hung up with Jenna, I walked out to my back porch and looked out over the harbor. The water was calm, reflecting the late afternoon sun like a mirror. Boats moved slowly across the surface, heading home after a day on the water. I thought about Helena, starting over in Florida. I thought about Rob Turner, probably drinking himself to sleep in some other woman's bed. I thought about the friends I'd lost and the bridges I'd burned and the price of standing up for yourself when the world tells you to be reasonable. I thought about Alice, who was coming over for dinner in an hour, and about Jenna, who was building a future for herself in Boston, and about the life I was slowly constructing from the ruins of my marriage. The doorbell rang, interrupting my thoughts. I walked to the front door and opened it to find a young man in a sheriff's uniform holding an envelope. "Gavin Sterling?" "That's me." "You've been served." I took the envelope and opened it. Inside was a civil lawsuit filed by Rob Turner, claiming damages for assault and battery, emotional distress, and loss of consortium with Helena. I read through the papers twice, then started laughing. I laughed until tears ran down my face, until my sides hurt, until the young deputy started looking at me like I might be having a breakdown. Sir, are you okay? I'm perfect, I said, wiping my eyes. Absolutely perfect. I called Derek and read him the lawsuit over the phone. He laughed almost as hard as I had. This is beautiful, he said. Rob Turner is suing you for loss of consortium with your ex-wife, the woman who was married to you when she was sleeping with him. Can he do that? He can try. It'll get thrown out of court in about 5 minutes, and then we'll countersue him for filing a frivolous lawsuit. By the time we're done with him, he'll owe you money. I love the law, I said. The law loves you back, buddy. That evening, Alice and I had dinner on the back porch. I told her about Rob's lawsuit, and she laughed so hard she nearly choked on her wine. Some people never learn, she said. No, they don't. Are you worried? About the lawsuit? No. Derek will handle it. About anything? I thought about the question. Was I worried about anything? About Jenna's future? About my relationship with Alice? About growing older alone? No, I said, and realized I meant it. I'm not worried about anything. Alice reached across the table and took my hand. Good. Because life's too short to spend it worrying about people who don't deserve your concern. She was right, of course. Life was too short to waste on people who had proven they couldn't be trusted. Too short to spend looking backward when the future was full of possibilities. Later that night, after Alice had gone home, I sat in my study and pulled out a legal pad. At the top of the page, I wrote, "Things I want to do now that I'm free." The list grew longer than I expected. Travel to Ireland, learn to sail properly, take cooking classes, read all the books I'd been meaning to read for years, spend more time with Jenna when she came home for holidays, build something real with Alice. At the bottom of the list, I wrote, "Live without looking over my shoulder." I folded the paper and put it in my wallet next to my driver's license and credit cards, a reminder of who I was now and who I wanted to become. The phone rang one last time that night. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity got the better of me. Gavin Sterling. "You think you're so smart," a slurred voice said. Rob Turner, obviously drunk. "You think you destroyed my life." "Rob, it's late. Go sleep it off." "I loved her, you know. I really loved Helena, and you took her away from me." "Helena made her own choices. She chose me. She chose me over you." For about 5 minutes. Then she chose herself. "I'm going to make you pay for what you did to us." "With what? A frivolous lawsuit that's going to get you sanctioned for wasting the court's time?" There was a long pause. "How did you know about the lawsuit?" "Rob, I'm a lawyer. I know about everything." "This isn't over." "Yes, it is. It's been over for a long time. You just haven't figured it out yet." I hung up and unplugged the phone. Some conversations weren't worth having. The next morning, I woke up to sunshine streaming through my bedroom windows and the sound of boats in the harbor. I made coffee and read the newspaper and planned my day, just like I had every morning for the past year. But this morning felt different. Final, somehow. Like I'd finally closed the door on the old life and opened it on the new one. I called Derek and told him to proceed with the countersuit against Rob Turner. I called Jenna and told her I loved her. I called Alice and asked if she wanted to have dinner again that night. Then I sat down at my desk and started working on a new case, a complex maritime insurance dispute that would probably take months to resolve. The kind of work I was good at, the kind that used my brain instead of breaking my heart. At exactly noon, my secretary knocked on my office door. "Mr. Sterling, there's a woman here to see you. Says her name is Helena Sterling." For a moment, I felt the old familiar knot in my stomach. Then I remembered. She wasn't Helena Sterling anymore. She was Helena Moss again, and she wasn't my problem. "Tell her I'm in a meeting," I said. "She says it's about your daughter." I sighed and put down my pen. "Send her in." Helena walked into my office looking older and smaller than I remembered. She was wearing a simple black dress and carrying a worn purse, and there were lines around her eyes that hadn't been there a year ago. "Hello, Gavin." "What do you want, Helena?" "I wanted to say goodbye. I'm leaving for Florida tomorrow." "Okay, goodbye." "I also wanted to give you this." She reached into her purse and pulled out an envelope. "It's a letter for Jenna for when she graduates from college." I took the envelope without opening it. "Why not give it to her yourself?" "Because I might not be around when she graduates, and because I want her to have something from me that isn't tainted by all the mistakes I made." Helena sat down in the chair across from my desk without being invited. "I know you think I'm a terrible person. I think you're a person who made terrible choices. Is there a difference? I don't know, and I don't care." Helena nodded like she'd expected that answer. "I've been going to therapy, trying to figure out why I did what I did." "And?" And I think I was trying to punish you for being successful when I wasn't, for being stable when I felt like I was falling apart, for being everything I wished I could be. Helena, I don't need your analysis of our marriage. It's over. I know, I just wanted you to understand that it wasn't about you, it was about me. I looked at this woman I'd been married to for 12 years, this woman I'd loved and trusted and built a life with, and felt absolutely nothing. No anger, no sadness, no regret, just a mild impatience to get back to work. Is that all? I asked. Helena's face crumpled slightly, but she held it together. That's all. She stood up and walked to the door, then turned back one last time. Gavin, I hope you're happy. I really do. I am, I said, and realized it was true. Helena left, and I went back to my maritime insurance case. An hour later, I'd forgotten she'd been there at all. That night, Alice and I had dinner at a new restaurant downtown. The food was good, the wine was better, and the conversation flowed easily between us. We talked about everything and nothing, her work as a police officer, my latest cases, Jenna's progress at college, plans for the weekend. You seem different tonight, Alice said over dessert. Different how? Lighter, like you finally let go of something you'd been carrying around. Maybe I did. Alice reached across the table and took my hand. Good, because I've got plans for us, Gavin Sterling. What kind of plans? The kind that involve a future. I squeezed her hand and smiled. I liked the sound of that. We walked home along the waterfront, past the docks where I'd spent so many evenings thinking about my ruined marriage and uncertain future. The harbor was calm, reflecting the lights from the restaurants and bars along the wharf. Gavin, Alice said as we reached my front porch. Yeah? I'm proud of you, for how you handled everything, for not letting them destroy you. They couldn't destroy me, I said. They could only destroy themselves. Alice kissed me goodnight and walked to her car. I watched her drive away, then went inside and locked the door behind me. I walked through my house, not our house, not Helena's house, but mine, and felt a deep sense of satisfaction. Everything was exactly where I wanted it. Clean, organized, peaceful. In my study, I sat down at my desk and opened Helena's letter to Jenna. Inside was a single sheet of paper, with a few lines written in Helena's careful handwriting. Jenna, by the time you read this, you'll be graduating from college and starting your adult life. I want you to know that everything good about you came from your father. He taught you to be strong, honest, and true to yourself. I taught you what not to become. I love you, and I'm proud of the woman you've become. Mom. I folded the letter and put it back in the envelope. I'd give it to Jenna when the time was right, but not before. She didn't need to carry her mother's guilt along with her own dreams. My phone rang. Jenna's name appeared on the caller ID. Hi, sweetheart. How are you? I'm good, Dad. Really good. I just wanted to call and tell you something. What's that? I've been thinking about everything that happened with Mom, and I want you to know that I understand why you did what you did. You didn't have a choice. Jenna? No, let me finish. You taught me that actions have consequences. That you can't just take what you want and expect other people to clean up the mess. That sometimes being a good person means being a strong person, even when other people don't understand. I felt tears prick at the corners of my eyes. I'm proud of you, Jenna. I'm proud of you too, Dad. And I want you to know that you don't have to worry about me anymore. I'm okay. We're okay. Everything turned out exactly the way it was supposed to. After I hung up with Jenna, I sat in my study for a long time, thinking about the past 2 years and all the ways my life had changed. I'd lost a wife, but I'd kept my daughter. I'd lost some friends, but I'd found out who my real friends were. I'd lost my illusions about marriage and trust and second chances, but I'd gained something more valuable, self-respect. The clock on my desk chimed midnight, marking the end of another day and the beginning of another. I turned off the lights and headed upstairs to bed, where I would sleep soundly in my own house, in my own bed, without worrying about lies or betrayal or stolen watches. At the top of the stairs, I paused and looked back down at the front door, the door with new locks, new keys, new possibilities. Helena had changed the locks to keep me out of my own house. In the end, all she'd done was teach me that some doors, once closed, should stay that way forever. I went to bed and slept better than I had in years.